Oof. Oof. 5-4. The Stars lose in overtime. They're down 3-1 in the series. Um, at this point, Stars fans just enjoy the ride, however long it lasts. If it's tomorrow night, if it's Monday night, just enjoy the ride. Um, Horrible way to end the game. Jamie Benn gets called for a penalty that was made by the back judge and clearly was not interference on the replay. Tampa gets a power play, and Kevin Shattenkirk, of all people, scores the game-winning goal, only his third of the season. Dallas loses 5-4. It was a game that they controlled early. It was a game that they looked like they were the better team in at certain points in the game, but Connor, just a variety of things going into that bizarre loss.
Yeah, there were definitely all types of bad calls on both ends. There were penalties that weren't getting called, and then there were non-penalties that were getting called. So it really stinks to see it end the way that it did. But at the same time, we had a chance to, kind of put our foot on their throats and end it in overtime, and we were unable to do that. And you kind of just felt it the whole game. Like you said, Dallas had control of the game at certain points, but you kind of felt it the whole game that Tampa Bay was kind of the better team. And with the injuries that we've got going, you're kind of going up and down the roster. Their fifth and sixth defensemen were a lot better than our fifth and sixth defensemen. I thought they were doing a good job of getting mismatches out there with Sekera and Hanley, with Braden Point out there. And it looks like we just really haven't had an answer for Braden Point this whole series. Yeah. And it's kind of like what we saw with Colorado. We couldn't stop Nathan McKinnon. And so, yeah, like you said, just a ton of things went into that game.
Now, I want to preface this because I think that you and I are two pretty level-headed hockey minds. I think that we can see things objectively, even though it's the Dallas Stars, our team in the Stanley Cup final. We both have covered them for a while. We both have been objective throughout our time covering them. But I think objectively, as any fan watching that game, you walk away saying, okay, that was a pretty poorly officiated game, right? Wes McCauley's crew. Wes McCauley's a guy that a lot of NHL fans like. He's fun. He's energetic on his penalty calls. But his crew had a bad night. There's no question about it. You go back to the two that changed the game, right? Shouldn't have been a call on Ben. And then, to be fair, like we said, we want to be objective here. So to be fair, Corey Perry got a huge break on what wasn't an embellishment from Braden Point right before the end of regulation. Shouldn't have been a 4-on-4. Tampa Bay should have been on the power play. So the way that those things break down, it theoretically levels out. But still, Tampa Bay, 4 power plays tonight. Dallas only 3. Here's the thing that separated them, Connor. And this is why the better team won tonight. This is why the better team in Tampa is going to win the series. They scored 3 power play goals. Mm-hmm. Dallas has completely lost its touch killing penalties, and they can't push any power play goals across.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. And a lot of times you see, especially in close games like this, that special teams end up kind of being that ultimate deciding factor. And you can it's tough because our defensive skill set, as talented as it is, and as much good times as we have, ahead, as a Stars team in general, we it seems like we're still younger and we're kind of smaller and more offensive defenseman type deals, and it doesn't seem like we really have anyone that can kind of answer superstars on other teams. Whereas Hedman and Sergachev both kind of have that ability. I was getting a lot of vibes of Klingberg in the playoffs 2 or 3 years ago. And it was his first kind of go around. I was kind of noticing that with Miro Heiskanen. It seems like they were dumping the puck on him, checking him. He was kind of starting to look over his shoulder. He was kind of just starting to sling some around the boards instead of making that extra play, And then it seemed like there were a couple times too where stuff was just in tight around the net, and it just looks like they were just bullying us out there.
Yeah,
and that's kind of what the Stars did to get as far as they got. Here.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The Stars actually took a 2-goal lead in this game. It's 2-0 in the first. You felt pretty good about the lead that Dallas had. Pavelski and Klingberg were excellent tonight. Goal for Klingberg in the first, goal for Pavelski in the second, another one for Joe to tie the game at 4 in the third. But it just wasn't enough. Now, the one thing that I will say bodes well for the Stars is that it looked like Tyler Seguin finally turned a corner. He had 3 plays to where he almost had a goal on his stick. He actually had 2 assists in this game. So it looks like the Stars are finally getting what they need to out of Seguin, but Connor, it's just way too late.
Yeah, it's way too late. And, this was just kind of one of those games. Vasilevsky hasn't, really been any brick wall or anything like that for them. We've been in most of these games, So, a couple lucky bounces, our way, a couple lucky bounces their way. And that's just kind of the way everything ended up unfolding on us here tonight.
Yeah. It's just the way that things are unfolding. It's the way that they should, right? Coming in, Tampa was the much better team on paper. They are more physically talented. They are better defensively. They, on paper, have a much better advantage in net in Andre Vasilevsky. Anton Hudobin has frankly not been good in the net for Dallas since Game 2. He gives up 3 in the first period in Game 2, really settles in after that, then gives up 5 in Game 3. And then tonight, 5 as well. 13 goals in 3 games. He hasn't been the same player that was winning games for Dallas. And Connor, it just brings back to the same point that we got to in my article on Wednesday night. And that was, it just seems like the magic is gone for the Stars. And that's okay. There's no shame in that. They won the West. They're playing the best team in hockey. But it just seems like it's all gone.
Yeah, and Tampa has definitely paid their dues as well. You've seen them take some pretty heartbreaking losses and stuff like that in the playoffs. And it's a bummer because, we've got some guys. We've got some guys like Pavelski, you know what I mean? Ben, these guys haven't won championships and, they're really great players in their own regard. But I think we have a good future ahead of us here. Obviously not having Ben Bishop in net, I think.
Yeah.
Was, more of a negative thing, even though Hudobin was able to play so well. We've got a young core group of guys, and, Pavelski still has 2 years left on his deal, and he really came alive in these playoffs for us. Will Perry be there next year? Not sure, but with the way he was getting penalties, I'm not really sure I care too much anyway.
He did score a goal. It was good to see him score a goal tonight. Sagan made the play. That was absolutely a goal that should go for Sagan, but Perry did get on the score tonight. Yeah.
And back to that embellishment call, just real quick. So this is my whole thing with it. The officiating was so shaky and inconsistent throughout the game that Braden Point didn't necessarily need to sell that. He could have just dropped down, but when the officiating's going that way, that's kind of why he did close his legs on the stick a little bit just to make sure it was like a, hey, you guys are going to call this, right? But I don't know, just a random thought there. He definitely did close his leg around the stick a little bit, but with the inconsistency on the coaching, I don't think that, obviously
it wasn't pretty either way. It was not. The NBC crew said it was a hockey play. It was, I think, to a degree, yes. Maybe not a 2020 hockey play. I think the referees are going to call that more often than they don't. But yeah, absolutely. And we want to be clear here. It's kind of a morbid tone to our podcast tonight because there's only been one team that's ever come back from a 3-1 deficit. That was the 1942 Toronto Maple Leafs. The Stars aren't going to be the second team. I hate to dull it out, the Stars, but they're not going to be the second team to do so. And I don't mean to be cynical or sad. It's just the reality of what we're seeing right now, especially considering they do have a back-to-back. And that's the point that I want to get at, right? The season's not over yet. They do have to get out there tomorrow and shape up for Game 6. For Game 5, I should say, hoping to force a Game 6. And, I think if they can get into a Game 6, that's a little victory for this team. And I think that if you're Jamie Benn, after taking a penalty like that, you're the team leader. If you're Rick Bowness, you come together as your group and just say, guys, whatever we do, let's just get this to a 6. Let's somehow get to Game 6, because I feel like that would be a moral victory for them stepping away.
Yeah, I think that would be good as well. And it wouldn't even surprise me if they were able to take it out to 7 games, if we were able to get one tomorrow and then, maybe sneak another one. But I think we would have to get a couple more guys healthy in the lineup. You could tell that Kamano was definitely, detrimental for us out there on the ice tonight. That
Well,
he just really wasn't quite up
he
to
almost
par
had
with
to go
our.
with Dallas too. You got to give him credit on that.
What'd you say?
He's been a healthy scratcher most of the playoffs. He almost had that goal that put Dallas up 4-2. That would have changed drastically.
Yeah, and that's tough to see because you want to see him get those goals, especially early in their career, so they can kind of get a little bit of that confidence to maybe kind of elevate their game to the next level, coming up to the NHL. But yeah, on paper, with our injuries, their third and fourth lines were just a lot stronger than ours were. I thought Andrew Cogliano actually had a really good game.
Great.
Yeah, he was out there moving tonight. Good to see Seguin, getting on the board. Hopefully, get a little bit of his mojo back. Pavelski, I thought, was by far our best player on the ice tonight.
Yeah, he's over the hearts of a lot of Stars fans, as he has for years nationally in San Jose. And he's a guy that I'm really glad is on the Stars. I'm really glad he's playing for the Stars and not against them. 12 goals in the postseason, only trailing Nikita Kucherov. That's unbelievable.
And the way he wins faceoffs too is just unreal. And
You're absolutely right.
And you could tell that, once play gets going, Tampa Bay is the better team. But with us constantly controlling that first play, winning those faceoffs, like it goes so far, and I would even go as far as to say that was probably a big factor in, why it was even as close as it was, because, when you win those faceoffs, like it's just controlling that first part of the play just goes so far.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's been something that Dallas has had an advantage in the past two games, both the game 3 loss and the game 4 loss. 58% faceoff wins tonight. That's huge. And Joe Pavelski was in double-digit faceoff win. Tyler Seguin was great on faceoff wins tonight. He had 14 faceoff wins. So absolutely, that's something that bodes well for Dallas, and they can possibly win a game 5. It's still frustrating to see it end like that for Dallas. Doc Emmerich was even saying, we don't have a dog in the fight, but we don't want to see this thing. And
I heard that too. Yeah.
Penalty. And he's right. But if you're Kevin Shattenkirk, if you're John Cooper, if you're Steven Stamkos watching on the sidelines, that doesn't matter to you. They are here to win a cup. The only thing that I'm worried about for Dallas tomorrow is, does that possibility of going home start to creep into your mind, right? It's one thing if you're not in a bubble and you haven't been there for 2.5 months. But if you're Dallas, there certainly is going to be the temptation to just kind of go that good night, if you will. Go out one last time, put a decent effort forth. But if you lose, then you get to go home. Yeah. I think that's going to be in the minds of some of the younger guys. I think that's going to be mission number 1 for Jamie Benn and Rick Bowness, to get to the younger guys and say, okay, look, we can't have that in our minds. We got to make this thing respectable. We somehow have to get it to 6,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And there's been a lot of times, over the last few years where, as somebody that watches the Stars regularly, you kind of see them kind of get that belly up attitude in games. They just start looking defeated and playing defeated, and it's like you can almost see it going on. So like you said, it wouldn't surprise me at all if that's kind of the product that we got tomorrow.
Yeah,
I hate that it was a back-to-back too, and I mean we lost this game, so it's not like it would have been a big deal either way. But I just, in the Stanley Cup Finals,
I agree with you there. And if you want to be mad at somebody, it's okay to be mad at NBC because they're likely the ones who are pulling the strings there in the NHL scheduling because of Sunday Night Football. They don't want to even risk those two things going head to head. And I get that. I really do. It's a huge blow to the Stars that they have to take the ice again tomorrow night. The one thing, I'm pretty much done with game 4, ready to move on. Let's just enjoy the ride the way that I see it, however long it lasts for the Stars. Is there any chance in your mind that you see Jake Ottinger in net tomorrow?
I don't think so. I mean, Hudobin played pretty well. There were a couple goals that you really wish he would have maybe been able to get, but at the same time, he didn't play bad. It's not his fault that we lost that game. You know what I mean? They did put 5 on the board, but the way they worked the puck on the power play, I mean, you can't really get that upset with him. There were certain places like that power play goal with Killorn where, a taller goalie like Bishop might have been able to cover that, top part of the net a little bit more. And it looks like he gets out of position sometimes, but I mean, I think he's playing just as good as Vasilevsky is,
Yeah.
So
Vasilevsky did have some incredible saves. Anton Hudobin, to be fair, had an incredible pad save midway through the third that kept the game tied. So give them some credit there. And I think if Ben Bishop somehow magically becomes physically able to perform tomorrow, I think you slate him as the backup. I don't think that you start him, even if you're in a desperation situation like you are for that, Dallas. But yeah, I think tomorrow, if Dallas goes down 3-0 in the first, something to that degree, I think you'll see Ottinger from there out, which would really stink for Anton Hudobin to have this magical playoff run that he's had. He just looks like he's out of gas at this point. And
I would agree with that.
There's no shame in that. And we want to make that very clear, Stars fans. Just enjoy the ride as long as it lasts. There's no shame here anyway. Not for Hudobin, not for Rick Bowness, not for the Stars. And the series is not over. There's no shame there. We're just trying to keep objective and real. Connor and I try to do that. We've tried to do that for years with our coverage on DallasSportsFanatic.com.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Any final thoughts on Game 4 going into Game 5?
No. That's it. Feels like it's over, you know.
This is going to sting for a while. I think this is when Dallas, I think, inevitably gets eliminated. I think this game is going to sting a little more just because of the controversy and the fact that they were this close. They were Tyler Seguin locating that puck away from tying the series at 2 apiece. Game 7 versus St. Louis in 2016 is here. Game 7 in 2019 is there. I think that this one, just because it's a Stanley Cup game, is a little above that, but it certainly stings right now for the Stars, and I think it will more than when they, I think, inevitably get eliminated.
Yeah, and you kind of saw it felt like Tampa has kind of paid their dues, and it's kind of their turn. And like you said, we've kind of been going up the ladder a little bit. You know what I mean? We lost, to the Blues last year in double overtime. Almost could have made it there. Made it that extra couple steps up the ladder this time. Ben and Seguin are getting more and more experience there. We should have pretty much the same core group of guys here for at least the next 2 or 3 years. So we're going to get a couple more stabs at it. Really, the only thing that concerns me about it a little bit is just going to be what we kind of end up doing to start trying to eliminate the other team's best players from being able to score. Because if they can score at will, and we take bad penalties, I mean, that's going to be tough, because it seems like every, but maybe not the Blues so much last year, but it seems like a lot of these teams that are top 3 or 4 in the league always have a couple of really big superstars, and we kind of create offense from our defense, and our defense is, we play well defensively and we've got good goaltending, but it'll just kind of be easy to see, if our guys just kind of grow into better defensive games, or, if we do try and get a big trade, big free agent signing, something like that. Be interesting to see in the next couple of years.
Yeah, certainly a lot of work for Jim to do when that offseason does start, whenever that may be. Again, Stars take the ice tomorrow. Somehow the sun will still rise tomorrow on these Dallas Stars. A magical group, a fun ride. No matter what happens, they take the ice tomorrow at 7 p.m. on NBC. Could be the last game of the season, so enjoy it. And what's been the most consequential season in Dallas Stars history. Just enjoy it for however long it lasts, the way that I see it. We'll cover you either way. I don't know if we'll be doing a podcast tomorrow night, no matter what happens. But we'll keep you posted on our Twitter at Dallas_Fanatic. Follow our coverage on the site at DallasSportsFanatic.com. Connor's work is available there. You can find me on Twitter at BJonesOnAir. Signing off for now. This is the Dallas Stars Fanatic Podcast.